I think there's a decent update when it comes to Algorand. And what is that? Algorand, more specifically, the Algorand Foundation recently posted on X, and it said that we're expanding our partnership with licensed digital asset financial institution Hex Trust, which already safeguards our digital assets. Now, when it comes to Hex Trust, I've never heard about it before, but even besides that point, what I find very fascinating about this is that when it comes allegedly, if we continue on in this post, it says that, again, in the perspective of the Algorand Foundation, it says now they're offering secure institutional access to Algorand staking rewards, strengthening the infrastructure of our growing ecosystem. Again, Hex Trust, you know, never heard about it before, but in my opinion, what I find somewhat unique about this is that when it comes to Hex Trust on X, they're followed by XDC. Now, XDC, I'm very bullish on that, by the way. I mean, of course, sometimes it's viewed as in the same regard, sort of like maybe being a watered down version of XRP or XLM. But even besides that, I'm very bullish on XDC and they're following Hex Trust, so I find that pretty unique. So, yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. Not to mention, Hex Trust is also followed by Animoca Brands. Now, some people out there may be thinking, okay, what is Animoca Brands? Now, Animoca, if we take a look at it, one of their subsidiaries is something called Sandbox. Now, Sandbox was a very popular metaverse back in 2021. We saw how well that did, historically speaking, during the 2021 bull run. Arguably, as of right now, Sandbox, isn't as popular as it once was before, at least in my perspective. But then, still, Sandbox is, a pretty massive project, and people still know about Sandbox, the metaverse, right? So I still think that this is pretty interesting nonetheless, and Animoca Brands, generally speaking, if we remove Sandbox, is still already massive nonetheless. So the way you take a look at it is that, you know what, when it comes to Algorand, I wouldn't really say that it is a bad project in my mind, even though nothing I say is financial advice. Algo, its native token, going to the price of $5. Is that still in my mind? Arguably, I would say yes, because I think Algorand is a very underrated layer 1 blockchain. Let me explain why. Because as of right now, a lot of attention is on Solana. And I'm very bullish on Solana, by the way. As of right now, of course, like what we've seen also in the past, there is a lot of attention for BNB, right? Because people like the BNB chain, of course, Binance. So then that right there also has, the attention, let alone Ethereum, which is doing hypothetically, you know, very good as of right now. I'll go a little bit too, actually, but maybe not in terms of the hype, right? Pretty good recovery though. But even besides that point, when I take a look at Algorand, it's allegedly the technology of choice for over 2,000 global organizations. So I don't think it seems that bad to me. Not to mention, if we take a look at Algorand, it has an aspect of ISO 20022. Now, if someone out there, is kind of like, maybe taking a look at stuff like that, they'll sometimes maybe know that, hey, Ripple and Stellar, they have an aspect of that too. And when it comes to Algorand, that's sometimes not really expected, right? Because sometimes when I tell my friends this, they're like, what, really? Like Algorand? Like they don't even think about that sometimes when it comes to Algorand because it's often kind of, thought about of Ripple and Stellar, but then Algorand, the fact that it even has an aspect of that, I think is very impressive. Now, let me explain real quick why this is a big deal, I think, arguably, at least in my perspective. It's because ISO 20022, that is currently being used by many financial institutions from all around the world for something called inter-organizational data exchange. Keep in mind, the way I take a look at it is that this is already up and running. It's not something experimental. Maybe they try it, maybe it doesn't work. Okay, let's say a project has an aspect of that. Who knows? It's not something like that in my perspective, right? It's already being used again by many financial institutions from all around the world for inter-organizational data exchange. So I think Algorand is very diverse. There's a lot of tools in the toolbox, so to speak. If we take a look at Algorand, right? What I find very impressive as well is that when it comes to, its carbon neutral aspect, because allegedly Algorand is carbon neutral. And I like that because the way you take a look at it is that a lot of enterprises nowadays, they want to go green, they want to showcase that they care about the environment. So could, let's say, adopting new technology that is environmentally arguably friendly, would that be, something that could be viewed as something that could maybe, again, give Algorand a unique advantage, maybe over the rest of the competition, which in some cases might probably not have that, right? So again, this is why I like Algorand. I think it's overall, something that I don't think is bad. Exchange listings when it comes to algo, I do like that. The community when it comes to Algorand, I like that as well. I think it's very passionate. I think it's very driven. Not to mention, Algorand has good fundamentals. I mean, those are kind of the three criteria that I often look for when it comes to these type of projects that are more so utility driven. So when it comes to Algorand, this is something that, I wouldn't say is bad to me. Now, keep in mind, when it comes to, let's say, algo going to the price of $5, considering current circulating supply market cap at that point would be around $43.5 billion, it's around a 16x. Now, first of all, some people may think, oh, around a 16x. Take a look at this other microcap or something like that. But that's a microcap. Algo is not a microcap. The market cap's already pretty massive, but even besides that point, it's not too massive where it feels a little bit kind of like the analogy I would say dinosaur-like, where, something like, let's say, Bitcoin going to 300 grand is under 3x, you know? Also, Ethereum, going to 10 grand is below a 3x, right? I mean, even if algo just, let's say, maybe went to the price of $2.50, so $2.50, that's around an 8x. That's well beyond a 3x, hypothetically, in my opinion. So then, the way I view it is that if someone said to me, algo, Bitcoin, or Ethereum, I'm going to have to say algo when it comes to that. If I got into Bitcoin 10 years ago, that's a totally different case, right? But then I did not do that. So then I am not going to just randomly, suddenly, I would say, take all of my holdings and just put it into a project that recently hit a new all-time high, which Bitcoin did. I cannot speak on anyone's behalf, by the way. I can only speak on, my perspective when it comes to this, but then I just would not do that just personally. This is my mindset. But even besides that point, $5 around a $43.5 billion market cap, again, considering current circulating supply. BNB reached over $100 billion of market cap years ago back in 2021, right? Not to mention, Dogecoin reached over 80 billion back in 2021 in terms of market cap. I am not saying that Algo could maybe have the hype or attention of a Dogecoin, and I'm not saying that Algo is ever, gonna like overtake something like BNB because, I mean, of course, BNB is very massive. We take a look at the BNB chain, Binance, in terms of the attention is just far greater than Algorand. I'm totally aware of that. But then at the same time, this doesn't seem that outlandish to me. Now, if Algo needed like $300 billion market cap to, let's say, maybe reach the price of $5, that's a little bit too much. I mean, that's just totally out of the question. This is the way to take a look at it. All I'm doing right now is just staying patient, acquiring, holding, and just waiting. That's it. And in case someone is wondering, why am I not pulling up a price chart, drawing some random triangles? It's because if, let's say, I drew a triangle on the price chart, it doesn't even matter, right? Let's say I draw SpongeBob. No matter what I do, the market's not going to care, right? It's not going to care what I have to do on that price chart. And I am not a day trader. That's not what I do. What I do is literally, I believe in a project, I dollar cost average, I hold, and I just wait, that's it. I treat it like a marathon. It's not a sprint for me. So if it's a marathon, I have to have that type of mindset, which is why I focus on the fundamentals. I focus on what the project is doing, as opposed to trying to day trade, which is not what I do, right? That's just not my style. I do not do that. But even besides that point, all I'm going to do right now is just stay patient, because with the way things are heading as of right now, if it continues on till, the end of this year and maybe to the beginning of next year, Algo, man, with the way it's heading as of right now, maybe hypothetically, seeing it at the idea of $5, that would not surprise me. So I'm just going to stay patient. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I would greatly appreciate it. It's only the captain, and I'll catch you all in the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.